David Ogilvy once said, "The trouble with market research is that people don't always think what they feel. They don't always say what they think, and they don't always do what they say." And that inconsistency is precisely what opens the door for alchemy. If people perfectly understood what they wanted, accurately explained why they wanted it, and then behaved according to what they said, marketing would be a mathematical exercise. You would collect the data, enter into a model, and receive the right answer. But people don't work like that. We're emotional. We're inconsistent. We're influenced by circumstances that we don't consciously recognize. And context can completely change how we perceive the exact same product, price, or experience. Context is everything. This is the final portion of the introduction to Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy. And in it, Sutherland explains why context is everything. He introduces the 4 S's and makes the case why we should occasionally go ahead and ignore the GPS. Because context changes meaning. A difficult workout, in the case of a CrossFit gym, can make one person believe that a gym isn't for them. The same difficult workout can convince another person that this is the only gym capable of producing the results that they want. The intensity doesn't change. Its meaning changed according to the person experiencing it. And the same thing happens with price. Reducing your price might attract people who want a more affordable option. It might also signal that your service is less valuable, less exclusive, or less effective. That really is the difference between Icon or Equinox as a gym and Planet Fitness. Increasing your price might drive one customer away while giving another customer greater confidence in what you sell. That doesn't mean price and intensity are irrelevant. It means that they can be evaluated outside of the context surrounding them. There's a sharp business point here. Every model that we create is simultaneously a tool for seeing what should be included to make a decision and a mechanism for ignoring. I'm going to say that again. Every model is simultaneously a tool for seeing and a mechanism for ignoring. The moment you decide which variables matter, you decide which variables disappear. A business model might include price, advertising costs, conversion rates, class capacity, payroll, or revenue per member. Those numbers matter, but the customer might be deciding based on whether the coach remembered their name. They might care about whether people like them appear in your photographs. They might care about how the room makes them feel or what joining a gym communicates about their identity. A spreadsheet isn't necessarily wrong. It's simply incapable of representing the entire experience. And even adding more information doesn't completely solve the problem. Someone must decide which variables deserve the most weight. And once you begin weighting them, your assumptions become part of the answer. And that becomes even more complicated when the context changes what each variable means. And this is why Sutherland tells us that we should sometimes ignore the GPS. He gives an example in the book about how a GPS tells you exactly where to go, but on a lot of times he'll actually ignore the GPS. And the reason is because the GPS can calculate the fastest route according to the information it has. It can measure distance, traffic, road closures, and estimated arrival time. But the fastest route isn't always the best route. It could be stressful to drive. It could be stressful. It could take you through a dangerous area. It could involve difficult turns or roads you hate driving on. The longer route might be familiar. It might be more scenic. It might allow you to stop somewhere useful along the way. The GPS isn't inherently wrong. It's answering an incomplete question extremely well. And that explains the flaw in logic. I'll make it a little bit more personal. Once upon a time, before Enoch Marketing, I was working with a company called Dimensional Search. They run franchises that do recruiting for different industries. Dimensional Search had created what essentially was a GPS for generating sales. It said, spend this much time, produce this much volume, make this many calls, and eventually you will move from point A, where you're not making any sales, to point B, where you're making $800,000 a month. And those variables may have worked for a person who created the system, but it didn't work for me. It didn't work for the new people who were entering the business. So I stopped following that GPS and I found a new route. And I moved into marketing and learned how attention was created. I learned how audiences were built, what people care about, what they are trying to gain that they can't articulate and they can't think through how they feel. I learned it all. And I learned what people really care about when you are trying to sell something to them. Now, if I had returned to recruiting today, I would be 100 times more successful and 100 times more effective because now I understand the variables that got ignored in the original model. And the model wasn't necessarily useless. It's a good model. It just wasn't the only way to reach the destination. And sometimes the way and the questions that the model spits out do not reflect the context and the unknown variables that are included in real-time practice. The way I like to think of it is like this. There are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns. And weirdly enough, there are actually unknown knowns too, but those are the things that you don't articulate. So when you are building these models, typically we only build it on that first quarter, which is the known knowns. We can't account for the things that we know but can't articulate. We can't account for the things we just don't know. And we can't account for what we don't know we don't know. So at very best, these logical models that we set up can only account for roughly anywhere from a quarter to maybe half of the total information. Therefore, the over-reliance on logical models sets up the person or the people to fail because it doesn't include a holistic account of different variables. Sutherland gives us 4 concepts that help explain the variables that traditional models frequently overlook. Those are, as he refers to, the 4 S's: signaling, subconscious hacking, satisficing, and psychophysics. And yes, I know psychophysics starts with a P. Signaling is what our decisions communicate to other people and what they communicate to ourselves. Subconscious hacking involves the environmental cues that influence our behavior before deliberate reasoning begins. Satisficing describes our tendency to select an option that feels good enough instead of endlessly searching for the theoretical best option. And psychophysics, which I understand starts with a P, explores the difference between objective value and perceived value. Something can be more desirable without becoming objectively better because our experience of that value is relative and context dependent. Once you understand these 4 concepts, you become better equipped to identify what may work through alchemy. They don't make human behavior perfectly predictable. And if they did, they would just become another GPS. But they can help you recognize the possibilities that conventional logic and traditional business models automatically exclude. Now, for your CrossFit gym. CrossFit gyms frequently attempt to solve their problems by pulling one of 2 obvious levers. That is price and intensity. If membership is down, people can make the gym more affordable. If people feel intimidated, they can make the workouts easier. Either choice may attract a different audience, but attracting a different audience does not simply solve the underlying problem. The real issue could be your signaling, your environment, the amount of uncertainty in the buying process, or the prospective members that perceive the value of what you offer. You cannot discover that by staring exclusively at the price or intensity. Those simply are variables that your GPS knows how to measure. Alchemy asks you to look at the parts of your customer experience that your model has been trained to ignore. How is your gym signaling status to everyone else? What is the landscape in which your gym is operating? Are you making it so that it is psychologically reasonable? Are you considering all of the things that your customer really wants, but they are not saying, if they're even able to say it? People don't always think what they feel. They don't always say what they think. And they oftentimes don't do what they say. And that makes human behavior difficult to model because it also creates opportunity for businesses who are willing to look beyond the obvious variables. Now, if you own a CrossFit gym and you want to discuss your current marketing model and what you may be overlooking, contact us at enochmarketing.com. And we'll help you examine your positioning, your customer experience, and the overlooked opportunities that could help your gym grow. Give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and follow along as we continue through Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy. I am Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing, and we will see you in the next episode.